Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Chicks Going Green. Today's video is all about plastic. As we all know, our global plastic waste problem is getting worse by the minute. This issue is pretty serious, and believe it or not, the effect that it's having on our health and on the environment is severely threatening the quality of our future on this planet.
So, the more well-informed we are, the better, and the sooner we'll be able to address the problem. That being said, the truth is, this is a really tricky topic. So in this video, we're gonna do our best to try to break it down a bit.
We'll be discussing the environmental and health effects that plastic has, the different types of plastics, including the difference between compostable and biodegradable bioplastics, recycling basics, and other important information to understand regarding plastics that you may not be aware of already.
And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please consider doing so. We have all sorts of other videos out there on how to lessen your waste, lower your environmental impact, and how to live a healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
Nowadays, there's plastic everywhere. We really can't get away from it, right? It's in our clothes, in our toys, in our packaging, in our tools, and it's even in our gum. There's also lots of different types of plastics out there, and there's so much information on them.
Especially when it comes to recycling and plastics terminology. It can be so overwhelming. So hopefully this video helps you understand plastics a little bit more and gives you some insight on how to lessen your waste and why you should lessen your waste.
Some plastics, of course, are necessary and important, for example, for medical purposes or machinery, but many are completely unnecessary and have mostly negative consequences on us and the planet, and that's most single-use plastics.
Their manufacturing requires the use of valuable resources like petroleum and water, and causes high carbon emissions. All for them to get used once and then sit around polluting the planet and making us sick for hundreds of years.
Back when they gained popularity, not that long ago by the way, in the 1970s or so, oil companies knew that their disposal would be an issue, but they didn't care. They made their profit and didn't worry about it. And now, 50 years later, large corporations that are knowingly continuing to add to the problem do nothing to resolve it.
For example, Coca-Cola currently produces around 3.3 million tons of plastic water bottles every year, which equates to 200,000 bottles a minute, and the majority of these aren't recycled. At these rates, how can we ever expect to not have such a serious problem on our hands?
Since the 1950s, 8.3 billion metric tons of plastics have been produced, and half of that in the past 15 years alone. That's more than 1 ton of plastic for every person alive today.
1 ton.
Crazy. Moreover, we produce 300 million tons of plastic each year worldwide, and half of that is single-use items.
Single-use plastics are most commonly used for packaging and serviceware, such as bottles, wrappers, takeout containers, and bags. They're defined as goods that are made primarily from fossil fuel-based chemicals or petrochemicals, and they're meant to be thrown out right after use, often in mere minutes. For example, the average lifespan of a plastic grocery bag is 12 minutes.
This is a perfect example of our current throwaway culture, where convenience is prioritized over long-term impacts and durability. Unfortunately, what makes the problem worse is that most people think that this issue is being taken care of by our government or the corporations making the plastics, but it's not. In reality, it's up to us to make the changes. So being as well informed as we can on the topic and on what we can do to help is key.
And the thing is, the same reasons that made plastic such a blessing are also what makes it such a curse. Because it's so cheap and convenient compared to other materials, it gets used for too many applications. And because it's so durable, it doesn't break down on its own, and it's such a huge source of waste.
The average lifespan for plastics, as you can see in the image, can vary all the way to a few hundred years. And even then, it can't break down completely on its own, because plastic is made using complex chemical processes. It just ends up becoming smaller and smaller sized pieces that become so tiny that they aren't even visible. These are known as microplastics, and they're one of the biggest issues we face when it comes to our plastic waste problem due to the fact that they're ending up in just about everything on the planet.
Microplastics can now be found in most water, fruits and veggies, and even salt. They are ingested by fish and other wildlife and end up in our bodies as well, posing serious health risks. The long-term health effects of microplastics are still being studied because, let's face it, we're kind of like guinea pigs in this. The problem hasn't been around long enough to understand the long-term effects it has in depth.
But what we do know for a fact is that ingesting microplastics could further expose us to harmful chemicals found in some plastics. These chemicals have been linked to a variety of health problems, including reproductive harm and obesity, plus issues such as organ problems and developmental delays in children. And when ingested by animals, it usually causes these same types of health issues along with blockages in their intestines, which sadly can lead these animals to starve to death.
So not only are these plastics an enormous threat to our environment and a huge waste of non-renewable resources, they're also extremely dangerous to our health and wildlife. You can learn a lot more about these issues in these documentaries that we both highly recommend. The links are in the description below. We've also included links to some informative articles and resources on the topic.
When it comes to resolving our current plastic waste problem, a lot of people think that one of the best solutions is bioplastics. However, this is a topic of much debate, and we personally don't think that they're really the solution, at least not at this point in time. Most bioplastics use a huge amount of resources to be made, and if they aren't disposed of properly, they can pose similar environmental and health impacts that typical fossil fuel-based plastics have.
Additionally, there's a lot of confusion around the various terms used. For example, compostable versus biodegradable. There is a difference between these two, and the terms can be misleading. A banana can biodegrade, but a compostable plastic fork cannot.
However, even when a bioplastic says it's compostable, most of the time this means it needs to be processed in an industrial composting facility, which isn't something the everyday person has time or energy for. Unfortunately, this also means that they're used for greenwashing often.
Currently, there just isn't the necessary infrastructure in place to process these bioplastics easily.
And at this time, this is a huge setback for the use of bioplastics.
If they aren't disposed of correctly and sent to the proper facilities, they just end up being part of the problem. As we say in most of our videos, single use, regardless of the type of plastic, is the real issue. So reusable products are the true solution. And you may be thinking, well, paper, glass, and other materials carry an environmental weight to them as well. And they do, but none like the toll that plastic is taking on our planet. We will talk more about the specifics surrounding this in another video though, so make sure to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned.
The other thing that people think is the solution to our plastic waste problem is recycling, and this couldn't be farther from the truth. Unfortunately, only about 10% of plastic actually gets recycled, and this low percentage can be due to a number of reasons, but understanding how to properly recycle can only help. First off, everything you're recycling needs to be completely cleaned, or it'll get sent to the landfill with regular trash.
Secondly, before just throwing plastic items in the recycle bin, see if you can find a second use for them first. Use your imagination and have fun with it. There's also a lot of plastic-free tip groups on Facebook where you can ask for advice on how to reuse or upcycle something. We've seen some pretty clever ideas in these groups, so check it out and don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're going to reuse them for food storage, just be aware that only the numbers 2 and 5 are safe. And even then, they aren't recommended for storing hot foods.
So definitely steer clear of reusing all other plastic containers for food storage and instead use upcycled glass jars, glass Tupperwares, or wax wraps. And by the way, never microwave food in plastics, ever.
Never, ever.
Never, ever. We can't stress this enough. Studies show that this is when extremely harmful toxic chemicals transfer from plastics into the food. When it comes to shipping materials in bags, any bag with a number 4 on it or that says plastic drop-off, like some food packaging bags and Amazon-type bubble mailers, can only be recycled at plastic drop-offs, not in the regular home recycle bin.
There's usually collection drop-offs for these items at grocery stores. Tanya and I typically collect them for a while and then take them all at once. And remember to steer clear of plastic shipping materials. Try to shop locally and on websites that ship plastic-free, and request plastic-free packaging from websites that don't already ship plastic-free, like we do. Lastly, there is the unfortunate fact that plastic can only be recycled about 2 or 3 times before it's considered a non-recyclable.
So really, it's just being downcycled, and it isn't infinitely recyclable the way aluminum and glass are. So again, limiting our use of plastics is what we need to do to make a difference, but we know it's impossible to stay away from all plastic. So we've included some great resources in the description below to help guide you with your plastic waste depending on the type of plastic.
Check out this article and take a screenshot of this simple recycling guide and save it on your phone. It's super helpful. There are also some companies like Playground Equipment that will take your HDPE number 2 plastics and turn them into playgrounds and park materials which is pretty awesome.
And then there's TerraCycle for odd items like toothpaste tubes, coffee capsules, razors, and chip bags, all that sort of stuff, which you have to find a drop-off location for, and honestly, this has been quite a struggle for Amanda and I. We haven't yet had any luck finding anything local to us, but maybe you will.
And lastly, you could shop on sites like Earth Hero, which offers TerraCycle recycling for some of their products. We have a discount code in the description below. Just be aware that you would have to ship it back to them.
At the end of the day, after all the research that we did for this video, which, mind you, was a lot, it's now more than ever extremely clear to us that the way to solve this plastic waste problem that we have on our hands is to refuse single-use and reduce our use of unnecessary plastics. Living a lower waste lifestyle by switching to reusable products, as well as shopping secondhand before buying anything new, is the best way to make a huge difference when it comes to this issue.
Both for the planet and our health. Well, we hope you found this video informative and motivating in cutting down your plastic waste even further. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give us a big thumbs up and consider buying us a coffee or two on our Ko-fi account. The link is in the description below.
And that's about it. Thanks so much for joining us on this video, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Bye!